Hey guys, it's Jay, and today I want to talk to you a little bit about the state of the games of PlayStation VR. And frankly, I'm not very happy about it, and there's going to be a lot of complaining in this video. But I want to give you a little context first. I am a huge fan of PSVR. I have been called a fanboy on multiple occasions, which I don't really consider that big of an insult because A, I am a fan, and B, I am a boy, so therefore, by definition, I'm a PSVR fanboy. But there are some things going on with the games that are leading in a direction that I really don't like, and I want to cover those now. So here it is, the state of PSVR games. Point number one, AAA games. There are no AAA games out for the PSVR right now, and it's not reasonable to think that there would be. That's one thing where I think that the fans of VR are being a little unreasonable. You know, a true AAA game takes years to develop. Even the quick development ones, like Assassin's Creed, are on a 1-year development cycle, and it seems like I heard somewhere that they've decided that's not enough time, so they're going to start doing bi-yearly instead of every yearly or annually. So it's not reasonable to expect a AAA game to be out yet, or probably even by the end of next year, really. Which is why I'm hoping a lot of developers will pay attention to what Resident Evil is doing and give us the Resident Evil experience, where you make a game for your 2D audience, which is somewhere around like 50 million people have PS4s. So you make a game without sacrificing your player base, but then you also make it playable in VR, throwing a bone to the VR fan base. That's our best bet at getting true AAA games on the VR, at least for the first couple of years, while it's going through its growing pains. Once more people buy into the headset and it becomes more profitable, and there's actually enough time since its release for a developer to reasonably have a AAA game to put out for it, getting games like Resident Evil is really our best bet. And point number two, and this is one that gets complained about a lot online, is the price of the games. The games cost way too much money, to be honest. I kind of kept my mouth shut on this for a while because I was expecting the price to drop. I figured that, first of all, there's not very much content out at launch. So the developers were pricing their stuff really high because they knew that if you wanted to actually use your new piece of hardware, you would have to buy their software, and there wasn't that much competition in the market. So I was thinking, once more software starts coming out and people have more competition for their games, they'll drop the price to try and sell more games. And then the second thing is there's not a very big player base for the PSVR. So, you're talking about maybe, I'm just going to estimate, let's just guess 500,000 headsets sold. That's a player base of 500,000 worldwide. When you compare that to a player base of 50 million PS4s, that's a pretty significant difference. And so I figured once more headsets start getting sold, the games will start dropping in price because they won't need to make as much per sale. But what has actually happened is the games have actually gotten worse in price, and it's really starting to drive me crazy because they've gone from overpriced to almost comically overpriced. When the PSVR first launched, the games were selling for about $10 every hour of gameplay. So Batman has an estimated playtime of 2 hours, and it sells for $20. Loading Human has an estimated playtime of 4 hours, sells for $40. Now that rule of thumb did not apply to all of the games. In fact, some of the games I think are well worth the cost. I think that $50 for Rigs, for example, is a bargain. $20 for Here They Lie is a really good price. But for the most part, the games were too expensive. But now, like most recently, the biggest offender I can think of is the Martian experience. And I did not buy this personally. I'm going off of reviews I've read online. Right now on PSN, I believe that The Martian is selling for $20. I'm pretty sure when it first launched, it sold for $30. And according to every review I've read, it offers about 20 minutes of gameplay. So even if you go off the $20 that it costs right now, you are literally paying $1 for 1 minute of gameplay, which is comically overpriced, just unbelievably overpriced. And I mean, when you look at Rigs, for example, Rigs versus Eagle Flight, Rigs cost $50, and you got a single player component to it. You got 12 maps in total. You got 20 rigs, and you got 3 game modes for your $50. Eagle Flight, which just launched, costs $40, so it's $10 less, but you only get one multiplayer game mode, one multiplayer character, one multiplayer map, and the single player component. So not even close to as much content or replayability as Rigs offers for just $10 less. Like, honestly, Eagle Flight should be a $20 game based on what you actually get for it. I know that we need to support the PSVR for it to succeed, but honestly, it's not like these prices hurt the PSVR, because if there's somebody out there, like there's a lot of people out there who would probably pay the $400 it costs for the headset itself. But then they get online and they're like, wait, this 20-minute Martian thing costs $20? Wait, this 6-hour Robinson game costs $60? Like, I'm not going to pay $10 for 1 hour worth of content. And the price of the games is going to drive down the sales of PSVR, I guarantee it. It's getting to a level of comically overpriced right now. All right, point number 3 is going to be comfort settings, and I want to get this one out of the way real quick. Let us move faster in VR games. The pace that your character walks is unbelievably slow. Playing Loading Human felt like my character was walking through knee-high mud the entire game. And it's gotten to the point where there are games I just can't play anymore because I'm so tired of being as slow as I am. But beyond that, comfort settings need to be optional. They need to always be optional. And unbelievably, they're not always optional. And here they lie. You only have 2 ways of controlling the camera. Way number 1 is the 45-degree shift. So you push right on the joystick and your viewpoint shifts 45 degrees to the right. You know, that's kind of annoying to play with, but it's not nearly as bad as the alternative, which is allowing you to full control of the camera with the right thumbstick. But every time you make even the slightest adjustment, your field of view narrows seemingly 50% every single time you turn. And that is really, really aggravating to constantly see your field of view narrow, widen, narrow, widen, narrow, widen. And there's no way of turning that off. Those are the only 2 ways that you can play the game. Same thing with Eagle Flight. Eagle Flight does the field of view narrowing as well. And again, it's unavoidable. You can't turn it off. It's so aggravating. Now, most games like Robinson and Riggs and different other ones will let you turn off the comfort settings, and that is the way it needs to be. I want to be clear. I am not trying to say, screw the people who get VR sick. They don't matter. Make a game for me. But let's talk about VR sickness for a second, because there seems to be this misconception among fans and developers alike that everybody gets VR sick, and that's simply not true. According to a study done by the Navy, and I'm not going to bore you with the details, let's give you the numbers, they find that around 20 to 30% of people who play VR, or in their case use VR simulators, experience severe VR sickness. I'm not going to count things like eye strain and stuff like that as severe, because that's not the kind of thing that would get me to turn off the game. But as far as actually getting nauseous or fatigued or disoriented, the numbers are around 25 to 30%, which shouldn't be ignored, but should not also be considered the majority of people. Another thing they found was that more than 95% of people who do get sick in VR will adapt to it. So what you're doing is you're making your games, primarily with 25% of the player base in mind, and of those 25%, 95% will adapt over time, and what you're left with is a large number of people who would have no problem playing your game without the comfort settings, but they're forced to use the comfort settings because that's how you made your game. Those should always be optional. They're really annoying to play with if you don't get sick. And the last thing I want to talk about is this idea that developers seem to have that everything in VR has to be in first person. This is really aggravating to me. It's almost like the developers think the only value to VR is actually putting you in the feet of the character. And it's really annoying because there have been a couple of things come and go now that honestly could have been really cool if they had done it right. And it makes me nervous for the future of gaming. So for example, the Lara Croft Tomb Raider VR thing. When I first heard that there was going to be a VR aspect to Tomb Raider, my first thought was like Edge of Nowhere, for the Oculus, where it is the same typical over-the-shoulder view of Lara Croft, and you're running through something. So, maybe have like a separate, tomb for us to explore that has, takes maybe 20 or 30 minutes to complete, has like puzzles you have to solve, maybe a little bit of action and some stuff like that. The same, high pace, action gameplay that we've come to expect from a Tomb Raider game, from the same viewpoint as the Tomb Raider game, but with the added effect of, the 3D and the full encompassingness of the VR. Like, I don't need to be in Lara Croft's face to enjoy it in VR. But what we got instead was the opportunity to spend 10 minutes walking extremely slowly through Lara Croft's house, listening to her reminisce about stupid memories she has. No action, no puzzles, nothing. And that was really aggravating to me because it was just a missed opportunity of what it could have been. And it's like the developers are afraid to make a game, over the shoulder third person viewpoint, which actually could work really well in VR. Not everything in VR has to be first person. Another good example of this, and actually just the best example of this, just the biggest missed opportunity, is NBA 2K VR. Like, unbelievably bad. When I first heard that there was going to be NBA 2K VR, I got kind of excited. I'm not really an NBA guy, but I got kind of excited about the prospect. And what I thought was going to happen was basically your viewpoint would be in the stands of the stadium, looking down at the court, controlling the action of what's going on. Basically the same view or same camera angle as you get in the standard game, but with, again, the added effect of VR. So kind of think like, that scene in Riggs on the plane where you're looking at the 3D model of the guy and he's dancing around like, yay, I'm the MVP, but make it an entire NBA game. That would be really cool. That would be actually really, really awesome and fun to play. And it probably would have been easier than what they did because they already had the game made. If they had developed the game in general with the idea of having a VR component, it would be pretty easy for them to make that conversion. But instead, what we got was the opportunity to be on the court. Yeah, doing a bunch of headmaster-style minigames like shooting three-point shots and bouncing the ball off different platforms. But it gets even worse because it's not even motion controlled. Like, it's not even like you reach out, grab the ball, and shoot it with the move controllers. No, you literally just look at the ball, your character picks it up, you aim the ball, and you push R2 to shoot. And it is the biggest abomination to a VR game I can imagine. Like, I don't know how many different scenarios I would have to imagine an NBA game in VR being until I got to that one. Like, that would be really far down the list. And it's a huge missed opportunity, but what it does is it makes me really nervous about the future of things like, I remember Tekken is supposed to have a VR aspect. And when I first heard Tekken VR, my initial thought was, that game that R2-D2 and Chewbacca are playing on the Millennium Falcon when Han Solo is like, it's not wise to upset a Wookiee, and then C-3PO is all, well, but nobody worries about upsetting a droid. And then Han's like, that's because droids don't pull people's arms out of their sockets when they lose. Wookiees are known to do that. And then C-3PO goes, I suggest a new strategy, R2. Let the Wookiee win. Like, that scene is what I thought of when I thought Tekken VR. But now I'm starting to worry that Tekken VR is going to be nothing more than you standing there and Heihachi is throwing slow punches at you and you're using the move controllers to block them. Like, that's what I'm starting to worry Tekken VR is going to be, because apparently in the mind of a developer, the only way to do VR is first person view. But that's not true. Like, if they would come out with something really good, you think like Lucky's Tale, but actually good. If they would reboot Conquer or Crash Bandicoot or something like that in VR and keep it with the same viewpoint, that would actually be a really fun game and I would definitely buy it. But I'm starting to worry that developers just don't understand VR. Like, it seems like they think that we want VR to be the holodeck, when in fact, we just want VR to be a cool other way of viewing games. So thanks for listening and watching. I hope you enjoyed the video. Be sure to let me know what I said that you disagreed with, or let me know if there's any other issues with the current state of VR games that you want to mention. And goodbye.